Ladies and gentlemen, in this demo presentation we'll take a look at the electronic invoices processing in SAP. You will see the inPuncto automated solution in action, from receipt to posting with the full control at every step. So let's begin and demonstrating how to scan a paper invoice. One of the most efficient ways to achieve this is by using our solution biz²Scanner-Front. Let me open it. This solution is fully integrated with SAP. This means that user access and permissions are managed through standard SAP authorization. Now we are into the biz²Scanner-Front. In this example, we will scan a document locally using a scanning device. This means the system is directly connected to the scanning device. Now we scan multiple documents by clicking this button. In this case, I have prepared the 3 paper invoices. Let's see how they look once the scanning process is completed. The documents have now been successfully scanned. At this stage, we can review the scan quality. For example, we can navigate from the first page to the last page to ensure everything has been captured correctly. If needed, we can rotate, split the documents, remove unnecessary content. You have also noticed that there is a barcode attached to the invoice. This barcode are used to separate individual invoices within the batch. If everything is correct, we are ready to complete the process by clicking this button. All documents are now automatically transferred to the biz²Scanner server and then to the SAP for the further processing. Let's now switch to the SAP system and navigate to the Invoice Cockpit, the central control point for managing all incoming invoices. Here is the first view that we can see is that the filter of the system, and you can manage that very quickly, very easy, and search for specific invoices in the system. For example, you can search by scan date, creation date, document type, agent, and many other criteria, allowing you to quickly locate and manage specific invoices within the system. So let me demonstrate it, how this works by searching based on the scanning date. By selecting today's date, display the most recently processed invoices in the system. Before we move on to 3 scanned invoices, I would like to show you what kind of information you can find here. For example, you can find the vendor names. You can also clearly identify which invoices are linked to the purchase order, allowing you to differentiate between different processing scenarios and handle them accordingly with the system. Also, you can see who is authorized to work through a process with the invoice. For example, when I click here, you can see the names of the persons which are authorized to work with the invoice. You can also see the next steps in the invoice processing workflow, allowing you additional relevant information. Overall, the Invoice Cockpit gives you accounts payable team a real-time overview of every invoice currently in the system, regardless of the processing stages. From here, you can monitor the status of each document, identify bottlenecks, track who is responsible for the next action, and ensure that no invoices is delayed or overlooked. Let's now take a look at the 3 invoices. Each one is different, so we review them separately. Now we'll open one of the invoices and take a closer look. We'll also demonstrate biz²DocumentControl, our core tool for working directly with the invoice inside SAP. This is where the actual process takes place. Data validation, item location, commenting, and workflow execution all happen within a single unified interface. On the right side, you can see the document that we scanned earlier. On the left side, you can see the information extracted by the OCR engine. At this stage, we can review and validate the extracted data, ensuring that all key fields have been captured correctly and correspondent to the original document. If necessary, we can make adjustments directly from here, ensuring that all extracted data is accurate and aligned with the original document. For example, We can select the document type based on the specific requirements on this invoice. We can also update the VAT number or adjust the pricing details if necessary. This level of flexibility is important for in the practice, as invoices do not always arrive in the perfect state, whether it's the missing tax ID, a wrong price, or incorrect total. All of this can be corrected directly at this stage, ensuring that only clean, validated data move forward in the process. When selecting a specific field, the corresponding date value is highlighted in the document, allowing us to verify exactly where each piece of information was extracted from. Now let's move to the next step and review the items in more detail. Here you can see all items included in the invoice along with their corresponding value and structure as extracted from the document. Since the invoice is not linked to a purchase order, we can manually allocate the items directly within SAP, giving us a full flexibility in how we proceed and assign the data. How we can do that? The process is very intuitive even for the first time user. We simply select the items and use drag and drop to assign them to the appropriate fields or accounting structure. Within just a few actions, the items are already allocated and ready for the next step. To finalize the part of this process, we need to assign the items to appropriate cost center or department depending on the business context. So how we can do that is very simple, just clicking here and select the cost center. Then appropriate number need to be filled. For example, with 1000, then go down and add the other number, and the process is done. Now, the items are fully allocated and ready for the further processing within the workflow. Let's proceed to the next step. For this example, I have already prepared a comment demonstrated how communication between users works within the workflow. We can also send this invoice to the next responsible person and require for review. For example, to verify the price of a specific item or confirm the quantities details. How we can do that? It is very simple and fully integrated into the workflow process. We just add the comment here, and the next person will immediately see it when they open the voice, ensuring clear communication and traceability. Now we can go to the final step and we select the next responsible person who will continue the process. But before completing this step, we also have the option to add additional notes directly on the document. For example, we can place a note such as please verify items details, and let's do it here. And when you click enter, you automatically see how your name and date going on the document, and everybody can see this note. This allows the next user to immediately understand what needs to be checked without having to search through the additional information. The note remains clearly visible on the document itself, make communication more effective, reduce misunderstanding, and ensure that all required actions are completed and successfully. Now, let's assume the invoice is ready to proceed to the next step. We have reviewed all the data, the allocations are correct, and the necessary comments have been added. So what we need to do is to click here to say that we are done with our process and to choose the next person from the workflow. We simply confirm the action and send forward to the workflow with clicking done. Now we can go back to the Invoice Cockpit, where we have a complete overview of all invoices currently in process. Let's take a look at a practical scenario. For example, if the assigned user is unavailable, whether due to a vacation, sick level, or other reason, we can ensure the business continues by reassigning the invoice to another responsible user without interrupting the workflow. This is very simple. We can forward the workflow agent very quickly, and we need to choose another agent from here. When we choose this agent, we directly go here and click OK. So in this way, the agent is changed, and we have the possibility to continue our process. For example, in this case, I change it to another person which is on a business trip and has no ability to work with SAP right now. But in this case, we have another opportunity and we have another chance to work with our solution. For this example, I will show you how we can use one of our solution, biz²DocumentControl web. So now the invoice is sent to another person which is on a business trip, for example, and he have only access from his PC, for example, or his phone, and he can use biz²DocumentControl web even without access to a SAP. And how we can do that? Let's go to the biz²DocumentControl, log into the system directly, and now let's go to the invoice that we send it to the other person. Clicking here, we have the whole relevant information from the invoice. We have the information about the latest user, the current user, the VAT number, the prices. Also, we have the scanned document. We can check it, see everything in the document, and we can see the latest comment from the last person which sent us the invoice. So let's say that the invoice is okay. By clicking approve from here, we're ready and can send it to the next person and directly can send it to the SAP system. Let's go back to the invoice cockpit in SAP. So let's see the invoice and see the latest comment that he approved this invoice, and we can finalize the whole process and release the invoice. We need to click here and done, and now the invoice is complete and we'll see the whole workflow in a few seconds. So let's see the workflow. We see that the workflow is complete, following all the steps, and the system generated a document number. Here is the document number. Let's double click on the document number to open the invoice details. In SAP Transaction FB16, we can see the posted document. This was automatically posted in SAP after successful completion of entire approval process. Throughout the attachment list in the archive system, we have a successfully additional information related to the document. After opening the window, two attached documents are visible in this case. The first one is the scanned document. The second one is the workflow history, which automatically generated by the system in PDF format. This document contains a complete and chronological record of all steps carried out during the invoice process, showing the respective process, the exact time steps, as well as all actions taken such as approvals, rejections, forwards, or correction. In other words, every step of this invoice lifecycle is fully traceable, ensuring transparency and compliance. So, now let's return to the invoice cockpit and explore another scenario. Before we move on to invoices with reference to a purchase order, I would like to demonstrate an additional use case that highlights automation capabilities. For example, when we work with recruiting vendors, you can define a business rules in the background. These rules can be automatically split invoice amounts, such as allocating 70% to one cost center and 30% to another, based on the predefined logic. So let's go to this invoice and see how is that work. So let's explore this example and see how it's working in practice. This invoice contains 2 pages. Let me show you. And also, all items has already been captured, splitted, and allocated automatically to the appropriate cost center. We can see that because they're in green, and this shows that they're already allocated. This functionality can be configured for each customer. Once defined, these rules can be managed easily and applied automatically in the background. This makes the process both efficient and consistent. At the same time, users retain full flexibility. Even if rules are pretendful, you can always relocate items manually if needed. So now let's move to an invoice with reference to a purchase order. In this example, we are working with a single purchase order. However, the system also supports invoices that reference to multiple purchase orders within a single document. Let's go directly to the second tab and review the details. Here, the open items from the purchase order are automatically matched with the items in the invoice. As you can see, everything is correctly matched and highlighted in green. From here, we can also open and review the purchase order itself, including all relevant details. With double-clicking on the number of the invoice, we can directly go to the purchase order, and we can check everything if it's necessary. For our example, everything is correct, and we can go forward with the next step. So we can close this window and go to the next step, which is the final step, and assign it to the next person. In our case, there is no need to be assigned to many persons like the previous times. In this case, we have very clear workflow. Everything is coming from SAP. The purchase order is created in SAP. It is linked to the invoice, and we have the whole flexibility in this workflow. So the process can be closed very quickly and manage it. So let's redo it and say OK, done. Now the process is closed and the invoice is finalized with the whole workflow. Now, let me demonstrate another method for sending invoice in SAP, specifically to the Invoice Cockpit, where there will first be proceed through the biz²Scanner server before reaching SAP. So let me open the email. In this scenario, invoices are received via email. They can come in different formats such as PDF, ZUGFeRD, extract, and others. For our demonstration, I've prepared the 3 emails, each contains an invoice in a different formats. Let me show you. This is the ZUGFeRD, this is the PDF format, and this was the extract. The way to forward them directly to the biz²Scanner server is by using a dedicated email address. Let me show you. I will directly forward all emails using this dedicated email address, and they will directly go to the biz²Scanner server so they can be reached and read it and send it to the Invoice Cockpit. So the last one is the PDF files. Here is very special, interesting information. You can have different emails. Of course, some of them can have one invoice inside. Some of them can have more invoices, which allows you to work more effective and faster. So let me forward in the last email to the dedicated email address, and now we are done. So also I would like to give you another advice here. There is 2 options which you can work with this dedicated email. The first option is direct submission. You share the dedicated address with your suppliers or clients, and they send the invoice directly to the biz²Scanner server. And the other option is controlled submissions. So, and this means that the invoice are first sent to you, give you the full control over the process, and then you forward them to the biz²Scanner server using the dedicated email address. So let's go back to the Invoice Cockpit and see the received invoices. Here are the two PDF invoices that we sent with the last email, and here are the electronic invoices. So let's move and work with the electronic invoices and start with the extraction. I will already open that, and let's talk about this one. The system provides the ability to automatically validate incoming XML files against the requirements of the Europe standard EN 16931, which defines the structure of the electronic invoice. So let's take a closer look here. There is a valid button, valid on the page, and let me explain a little bit more about that. Upon successful verification of the invoice is marked as a valid and it is ready for the further processing through the standard workflow. The system offers full transparency over every incoming invoice. Let's how we can see that. We go here and click on attach and see that here is the whole information, which is from the attached email, the XML file, and processing protocol. The processing protocol shows how the system identifies and extracts the relevant fields from the XML structure. Let me double click on here and see the protocol and how it looks like. Here is the protocol, here the whole relevant information from the protocol, and also the protocol was developed based on the specific customer requirement and ensure full transparency of the data recognition process. After successful validation, working with the electronic invoices follows an identical process to all other documents in the system. So in this case, we are done with this invoice and we can go to the next one. So let's talk about ZUGFeRD invoice. ZUGFeRD is a German standard for electronic invoices that combine two elements in a single file, a human-readable PDF and an embedded XML document. Well, the PDF servers are the visual representation that people can read and value. The XML is the actual original document, the machine-readable core that contains all the structured invoices data. So let me open this ZUGFeRD invoice and show you. Here is the ZUGFeRD invoice. So let me continue. The difference is very important in practice. When an invoice is received, the system automatically validates the XML structure and checks for errors. If any issues are found, the invoice is rejected and detailed error reported is returned to the sender. How we can see that? Like the previous invoice extraction, we can do that here as well. Let's go to the attached files and see all the attached files. Here the first field is the email, the second one XML, the data protocol, and visualization invoice. Let me open the visualization invoice. We can see that it is invalid, and the feedback is extremely valuable as it gives the client process information about what needs to be correct in their invoice generation system, allowing them to fix the problem quickly and responsibly. So where we can see the error and the files and the information about the failure, it is here, mostly in the end of the pages, and we see where is the problem with this invoice. So besides checking the invoice ZUGFeRD follows international XML standards and can be easily bulleted into existing workflow. It is also lets you attach extra documents to the invoice, making it flexible and completely solution for modern invoicing. So this was the last invoice that we saw during our presentation, and I'm glad that you're watching it. I wish you have a great day.